Hi everybody and welcome to Retro Ratchet. First question you might be asking is, why is there an electric car on my channel? So that's a dead simple answer. We attended a marketing event for the reveal of the MG Cyberster a couple of weeks ago. We took the Maestro Turbo because that is obviously the best MG in the world. And then we were offered this to do a road test and review on. So this is the brand new MG4 X Power. And yes, it's electric. But I guess you'll still be thinking, why am I featuring on the channel? Well, it's got in excess of 400 brake. So it would be rude not to. So stay tuned if you want to hear more about what I've got to say about it. So let's start by explaining, I do have a little bit of a history with EVs. And that might be a surprise and a shock to some of you guys, given obviously my channel content is all older cars. Technically on my third electric vehicle now. As you probably know from the monthly reviews, got the XC90 T8, which is a plug-in hybrid. A few years back I had a pretty nice Tesla Model 3 Performance, that was the one I have. And then before that, we'll say this one really quietly so that nobody actually picks up on it, we had a Leaf. But we won't go into that. So anyway, yeah, I've had a few electric cars. There's quite a few aspects about them that I really like. I like the fact they're very quiet in operation, they're very smooth, you get a hell of a lot of performance in them, and in my view, running costs are very, very good. When I had the Tesla, before we had the hike in electricity, it was costing pennies to run. It really was a supercar to have with that level of performance. So this review, I'm going to focus on what my thoughts on the car are, what my views on it are, from somebody who has, I guess, a foot in either pond. You know, I like EVs and I like petrol cars and I like older cars. So quite an objective review on it. I'm not going to discuss whether you should buy an EV or whether you should buy a petrol. I'm merely going to appraise the car on its merits and its merits alone. So let's dive into a little bit more about what the car is. So it's an MG4 X Power. They've just recently been released. This one's fitted with a 64 kilowatt hour battery. And this one has an excess of 400 horsepower, so it really puts it on par with the likes of the Tesla Model 3 Performance. So with a 64 kilowatt hour battery, it gives you a WLTP range of 239. These range figures they're very similar to car mile per gallon figures. There's a whole load of factors that can affect that, some more than others. So obviously the way that you drive it, how cold it is outside, you know, if we're down at 0 degrees versus 20 degrees, you know, range is going to be reduced. I suspect, and this is obviously not tested by myself, you would probably get in the region of maybe 200 miles range out of this if you're driving it normally. I will try and later on do a short test of what the efficiency figures are on it. So we have more technical details. The non-X Power models are fitted with a single electric motor driving the rear wheels. This one's fitted with 2 electric motors, one driving the front, one driving the rear. So combined power output for that is 429 horsepower. So I mean, that's pretty staggering for one of these. 600 newton meters of torque as well, and the torque is pretty much instantaneous in an electric car nearly all the time. So you don't have to wait for turbos to spool or supercharge or anything, it is just there. Fortunately, this is all-wheel drive. Given it's got 600 newton meters of torque, it generally drives in rear-wheel drive mode until you press on a bit, and then it'll kick in the front-wheel drive as well. It's nice to see the X Power name has reappeared on MG models. X Power name was first seen in 2003 on the MG X Power SV, so that was a 2-seater coupe with a 4.6 litre V8. So yeah, the exact polar opposite of what we're sitting in today. Lovely car, super rare now, worth a decent bit of money as well. Right, so I guess the first question is, what's the difference between this and the next model down, which is the Trophy? Well, in reality, there's not a massive amount, obviously putting the running gear to one side. So we've got these 18-inch wheels. And from a distance, I was getting quite excited. I saw what looks like big orange brakes, similar to what I had on my CLS Merc. But actually, these are just covers. That's a wee bit disappointing. Why couldn't we have had the actual calipers just painted orange with the badging on them? In terms of the body, there is quite a lot of nice styling details on it. You've got these swage lines here. This one runs up into the back window. I think that is quite cool. You've got this plastic inlay going on down here at the bottom of the doors. I don't know if I'm so keen on that. I think that maybe looks a wee bit cheap. And inside, the only main difference you have inside is this red stitching that you can see. There's no X Power or anything stitched on the seats. You know, the Maestro Turbo has MG written on it, which I think is quite cool. But yeah, it's not that much different to the standard one. So this one comes in a new colour. It's matte and it's called Racing Green. So you either love it or hate it. It does actually suit it pretty well, to be fair. You've got a black roof there, and you've got these on top of the window. So you know it does look reasonably sporty, but to be fair, I don't think this is its best angle at all. It does look much better from the front, but that's just my opinion. You've got these cool headlights, nice big chrome MG badge. Maybe it could have been red. And then the spoiler down the bottom here. So there's quite a few decent styling details on it. So it's actually quite a spacious car, I think. So in the back, I mean, I am pretty small, so I'm probably not a good tester for this, but decent amount of knee room. Headroom, yeah, I got about maybe 3 inches above me headroom wise. The seats are pretty comfy. The only one thing is, it doesn't have a centre armrest, so that's a bit of a pain. I usually prefer having one of them. But yeah, it's decent in the back. Let's go and have a look in the boot. So the boot's okay. You get these higher floors in these. You've got the motor in there, and there's also batteries and stuff to take into account for, so there isn't a very deep floor. So that's roughly what you've got. I mean, it's still fair. Only one annoying thing is there's nowhere actually to store your charging cable, you know, your Type 2 cable. So that just kind of sits a little bit awkwardly there. In most cars, there's usually a little bit of space under there to store them in, which we don't have. So yeah, that just sits there. But yeah, it's still a decent, usable size boot. And in the front, so I've actually gotten quite accustomed to driving it now in the short time that I've got it, which is a good sign, you know, that I haven't been kind of wrestling with the controls trying to get comfy. You've got quite a lot of adjustments. So the driver's side are electric. You don't have a tilt function on the seat. You only have a height adjustment. So you can't get the front of that base up or down independently of the rear. You've obviously got the reach there, and you've got the backrest adjustment on that one. But yeah, I mean, I find them pretty comfy. The headrests are in a pretty good position for me. They're not pushing your head too far forward. What else can we say about it? Plenty of storage space, as you can see. Obviously, you've got a traditional glove box in there. You've got storage under the armrest there. This here, again, is ideal for just chucking your wallet and cables. A couple of drinks holders there. And if you look under there, we've got a couple of different options for cable charging. So just standard USB and USB-C, and then standard 12-volt cigarette lighter type charger there. Got a flat charge pad there for your phone. The car does come with Apple Play, but it's wired Apple Play or Android Auto, so just bear that one in mind. Well, let's have a wee look at this infotainment system. So you've got traditional style buttons down the bottom here, which are actually pretty useful. This is for your heating controls, so it immediately brings them down onto the screen. First glance at this, it is a little bit overwhelming. I thought there's kind of a lot going on here. You do get used to it in time. Obviously, you've got your temperature controls here, your heated seat controls, and your heated steering wheel. I really like heated steering wheel, so that's a big plus for me. And you've got your fan control, so positive or minus for that. And then you've got different directions where you want the air to be going. You've got your auto and your eco. The eco, I assume, probably just cuts off the air conditioning compressor if your battery is low. So that's pretty good. That's how you bring that down. And you've got your home screen button there. So your home screen, you've got a few things. I'm not an expert at these because I've not really had the car for that long to really get into the nitty gritty of how you can personalise the different various features on the car. But yeah, at a glance, You know, we have time, we've got location there and date. So this is battery levels. So let's have a wee click on that. Yeah, so what we've got here, charge, 66% battery state of charge. Current estimated range 139 miles. So there's another few settings kind of on there in terms of AC current limit, and again pretty similar to the Tesla. Discharge settings, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if this is maybe vehicle to grid. Please put in the comments and correct me on that. I think it probably is with this setting. And we've got an energy consumption screen here, which tells you about how much regen on since start and since last charge, and how much total power you've actually consumed in these journeys. We've got a wee diagram here of just energy flow, so when you're running, it'll tell you, whether it's power in the back wheels or the back wheels plus the front wheels. Onto the dashboard here, there's a bit more information on your efficiency. So what we've got here is from the start, how long you've been running, total miles, average mile per hour, and your miles per kilowatt hour. So that's the important one, and we're going to get back to that later, a bit more of an explanation on that. You've got an accumulated total, so just like a running total there, and then just another screen showing the exact same stuff, which is that information from the last time it was charged. So that's pretty decent. And you can flick through various things here, navigation, you've got settings on the screen, what music you're listening to. I'm actually not listening to Radio 2, so it's lying. And you've got your tyre pressures. Moving on to the steering wheel. So it's a multifunction steering wheel. These here, you can create favourites, I believe. I don't know how to do that. I haven't actually got into that yet because I just don't have the time. But yeah, it's kind of like favourite buttons to get the car to change certain functions. So that's pretty handy. And everything else is controlled by these. They're like little mini joysticks. So they can control volume level and different parts. It's your cruise control button there. So you can control your cruise speed up and down on that, and your distance. So that's pretty decent. Moving over to the centre console. So this is your gear selection. So you've got park, it's just a button in the middle. You've got drive, neutral and reverse. And then you've got your park brake here. One thing I have noticed is there is a couple of occasions when it's not quite reacting as you would expect. You're having to press things 2 or 3 times. It's not all the time, just some of the time, so it can be a little bit irritating. You do get used to it, but I think, yeah, it could probably do with the quality being improved on that a little bit. Right, so let's talk about performance, and let's be honest, that was the main reason for me reviewing this car, and probably one of the main reasons a lot of people will buy this. It is insanely fast. So the 429 brake, you get 201 horsepower from the front motor and the remaining 228 from the rear. Power is instant. We're going uphill at the moment, and then that's just at 60. It's absolutely fantastic. The way that you can catapult out of corners, not much is going to stay with one of these. If you'd never owned a high power EV in the past, you would be totally gobsmacked the way this thing drives. It's also fitted with an electronic diff with torque vectoring, so what that does is fires all the torque to the wheel that's got the most grip. So MG claim 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 3.8 seconds, and I can 100% believe that figure is accurate. And handling wise, so we're on a single track country road here. It stays pretty flat. Obviously I'm not pressing on at 10/10 because it's not my car. The brakes I find are excellent. See what I mean? It's just insane, the level of performance you get off it. You'd have to be in something seriously high power petrol wise to be able to stick with this on a road such as this. So MG have done a good bit of work to beef up the rest of the car to be able to cope with this level of power. So brakes all round, 345mm vented discs. It does stop very well. You do have to bear in mind it's still an 1800 odd kilogram car, so it's not a lightweight. It's not as heavy as some EVs, so it is going to hinder it if you are pressing on, but in normal driving, it's really not going to be a problem. Suspension's also been modified, 25% stiffer, I believe. So the springs, the dampers and anti-roll bars are all modified. You find with EVs, the centre of gravity is so low because you have all the weight of the batteries sitting underneath you that they are very, very stable through corners, and they're really not as bad as people think handling wise. Certainly in normal everyday driving. So those unfamiliar with EVs, there's a few interesting features that they have that I'll talk about just now. So we've got different drive modes here, so that's pretty in line with most other cars: Snow, Eco, Normal, Sport and Custom. But where it does get a wee bit interesting, we've got energy recovery, we've got low, medium and high. So what that means is when you come off the throttle, the motors will actually recharge the batteries to an extent. So yeah, a little bit of energy recovery there. You get used to anticipating your driving, and you're slowing down a little bit more when you're in an EV, because it does help to give you a little bit longer range. This one's got one pedal driving, so what that means is, to an even greater extent, when you lift off that accelerator, the car will slow down really quickly instead of having to use the brake. So obviously if there's an emergency, you would still use a foot brake, but here we're coming into a 30, that's my foot off the gas there, and that's me getting down to 30 mile an hour, well regenerating the battery. So it's something you either love or hate, or you can get used to. I got used to it quite quickly in the Tesla and the Leaf, so I'm pretty used to driving these type of things. But yeah, it's a feature I actually quite like, not having to get on the brakes all the time when you're slowing down. So with this, there's very little fake electric noise. You do get some of them now that have sound emulators and things which sound a wee bit weird, but this, you do just get a faint little whine off the motors. So it's nothing too intrusive or too strange. You maybe hear maybe able to pick up a little bit there. So let's see how it handles this country road. The brakes are very good. They're not over assisted. You do still have to put a reasonable amount of pressure in to reduce that speed right down. The speeds that this thing can get to in these little straights is just ridiculous. Nice and flat as well. Just incredible, really, how quick this goes. They're so competent on little cross-country routes like this. I do really believe it's managing its weight very well. This is great fun though. I'm really enjoying this. The one pedal drive is actually quite helpful on a little route like this. But yeah, as much power and torque as you would ever need to still enjoy yourself. You're obviously still missing that noise from a petrol and changing the gears and things like that, but in terms of driving swiftly, yeah, this will be an interesting test for it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's spot on. I think the handling's all right. So I've been down to do this to check out the launch control. So it should just be a case of left foot hard on the brake, foot down on the throttle, hear a wee bump, and then we're off. Yeah, so easily 3 odd seconds to 60. That launch control's dead simple. No buttons, nothing like that, just foot in the brake, foot in the gas. We'll have to do that again though, I quite like that. Right, here we go. Right, let's go for it again. Foot in the brake, on the gas. There we go. And we're off. 60. So yeah, I mean, that's just great fun. We are eating through a bit of battery launching this, so we'll not be getting our 200 odd miles range out of it today. But that's part of the fun. I mean, it's kind of like your petrol car, you're not going to get 25, 30 to the gallon, out your sporty car when you're messing about like this. But yeah, just see this massive chunk of torque that you get instantly on these little straights. Spot on. I will admit though, after over a year of ownership of the Tesla, you do get used to that. The novelty does eventually wear off. But it's great when you come back into one of these and you've been driving petrols, especially like older petrols. And that's us, we're off. You know, you do feel it fighting and scrabbling about. I think a lot more than the Model 3 did. This is just a little bit more manic. It does obviously control it well. The roads are a wee bit damp today and it is cold. I don't know what temperature it is. I think it was about 9 degrees outside, so I will forgive it that. But yeah, there is a bit of torque steer and stuff going on there, which makes it entertaining. But you know, you're not going to be driving it like that all the time. So it's obviously fitted with adaptive cruise. It's keeping a steady distance between me and the car in front. You might not be able to see it the way the camera's set up, but yeah, fully adaptive, and you can adjust the distance between yourself and the vehicle in front, which is great depending if you're in stop-start traffic or you're on a country road like this where you maybe want to increase that distance, give you a bit more braking time. Now, the first thing I thought when I stepped into it is, this has a steering wheel like an Austin Allegro. I do actually quite like Allegros. Again, don't tell anybody that, or yeah, we'll keep that to ourselves. But this octagonal kind of design, it's got the flat bottom and the flat top. I think it's maybe designed like that to give you that view through there. I quite like it. Again, it's going to be Marmite. Some people like it, some people hate it. You know, a lot of other cars have this flat bottom setup as well, but no, I think it's pretty decent. But yeah, EVs they're just so nice for just plodding along like this. Part throttle, you know, you've got no gear changes. They're just so smooth, nice to drive. Because not all the time, you know, you want to be blasting about and getting engaged in your drive. You know, you've finished work at night, you just want to get home safely and comfortably with no stress. And EVs are absolutely great for that. But I think that's why, you know, when I had an EV, I had other cars as well that kind of ticked the other boxes. I felt with the Tesla there was always something a little bit, there was always that little bit of something missing. It ticked a lot of boxes, but I felt it just didn't have that character and soul that some petrol cars have. There's not really many these days that have that, but if it was my only car, you know, I would miss that kind of driver engagement and that character. They are just a little bit clinical, EVs, but again, they're just different, and that's why I think you not should, but could have an EV and a nice fun toy as well. And you know, you're getting the best of both worlds. So let's take a wee look at running costs of these. That'll be an important factor for anybody deciding to buy any type of car. So I do have some notes on that, so unfortunately I can't remember all these numbers, but right, I'm going to run through a bit of an illustration for running costs for those that, again, are not familiar with EVs. EV owners will know all these calculations and know how to work them out. So grab a coffee and I'll do all the numbers. So the idea with electric vehicles is you really need to be charging them at home to get your best bang for buck in terms of how much they cost to run. So that is the theory. You know, you charge from home, you get a cheap overnight rate. Personally, I'm on Octopus Go. They have a cheap overnight tariff. It's something like 9 pence a kilowatt hour at the moment, you know, give or take. I think that's plus VAT. Anyway, so 9 pence a kilowatt hour. So this has got a 64 kilowatt battery, and again, these numbers are give or take. I'm just using an illustration. Any EV driver will know what I'm saying doesn't actually pan out exactly as I'm saying in real life. But if you had an empty battery, which you tend not to have, your 64 kilowatts times your 9 pence would be about £5.76 to get your full battery. So again, this is just an illustration. So let's say it costs you, you know, £5 odd to fill your battery. From that charge, you'd maybe roughly get about 200 miles out of this. To get 200 miles out of this, you need to be getting roughly in the region of 3-ish miles per kilowatt hour. Again, I've not tested any of this, so don't take these as gospel for how efficient the car actually is in everyday use. This is just some numbers so we can get our head around how much it actually costs. So far we've got £5 odd, so £5.70 to do 200 miles. So that actually works out at 2.9 pence per mile. So that's an important number that we all need to take into consideration if you're comparing to a petrol or a diesel car. So 2 pence per mile when you charge at home for your 200 miles. So let's just say 3 pence per mile, just to round it up. So at today's diesel costs, 50 mile per gallon is 14.8 pence per mile. So again, let's just round it up to 15. So that's actually 5 times more expensive to run a 50 mile per gallon diesel than it costs to run this, using just approximate efficiency figures for it. So that's quite interesting. It's 5 times more expensive. The next question people say is, oh, but what happens if I want to do more than 200 miles and I'm going on holiday and I'm going here and I'm going there, or I'm driving a lot due to business? So then you would use a public charger. What I've worked out here is a break-even point. So if you charged publicly at 45 pence per kilowatt hour, that is then the equivalent to 50 mile per gallon in diesel, assuming you're getting your 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So what you've got here is 429 brake horsepower car that if you public charge and it was 40 odd pence a kilowatt, which would be a kind of worst case scenario, is still 50 mile per gallon equivalent to diesel, which for this level of performance, I really don't think is too shabby or too unreasonable. So that's, again, all those numbers are adjusted depending on your driving conditions. If you're driving around town, EVs are very, very efficient. If you're driving on the motorway and you're maybe being a little bit naughty and going above 70 all the time and sitting at 80, you're going to eat through that battery and it is going to be less efficient. So those are all things that you could work out. There's lots of information online about how efficient each of these cars are from owner's experience. And I'll do a wee 10 mile test later, but again, take it with a pinch of salt. It needs to be tailored to how you drive, where you drive, your climate and lots of other things like that. So how did we do on our little efficiency run? So what we got here, 6.2 miles per kilowatt hour over nearly 15 miles. So that was just round Edinburgh City Bypass and back into the MG dealer here down at Seafield Road. So it was quite heavy traffic, so you can see the average speed 26, it was quite low, so that's probably not that realistic an amount, but we'll scroll through and see what else we got. So there's from last charge, so that's probably what roughly we've done maybe in it today, 90 odd miles there. And it's averaged 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, again, to put that into perspective, there was launches, there was a lot of faster driving than you would normally do, or certainly most people would do routinely in a journey out. So, somewhere between those two numbers, it would be nice to have the car for a bit longer and actually just do some normal driving over the course of maybe a week to see what it would do efficiency-wise, but I suspect it'll probably be pretty decent. So what do we think, guys, then? Is it something anybody would be interested in? I'll tell you what my opinions are. Performance, as good as it gets. It's kind of in line with the Tesla Model 3 performance, give or take a little bit. Handling, I think it handles its weight and the level of torque going through the wheels really, really well. I think for an EV, I think it's pretty decent fun. Obviously, compared to a petrol sports car, it's not going to be as much fun. It misses that little bit of character like I was explaining earlier. But, we're not comparing like for like, are we? So if you were looking for an EV, and you wanted something a bit more interesting, a bit faster, this would definitely be in the top few on the list. Now, in terms of value, well, again, you will definitely not beat this for value. 36.5 grand with a 7-year warranty for this level of performance. Even the launch control, you are definitely not going to beat that. As a small family car, I think it's pretty competent as well. It's full of spec. There's a lot of safety features on it, which is something you definitely want to consider, these days. In terms of ease to drive, I think the car's super easy to drive. You get in it, you put it in drive, the automatic handbrake releases, and you're off. Pick your speed. It's nice and smooth. It's quiet. So yeah. In terms of running costs, I think it would be hard for me to make a judgment on it if I hadn't owned it or hadn't used it for maybe 1,000 miles or so to actually get to grips with how efficient it actually is in real life driving, on a daily basis, and then also when you're pushing it on a bit. So I wouldn't really comment on that. What I would say in general though, an EV of this size, assuming you're getting 3 miles per kilowatt on 3 miles per kilowatt hour on average, clearly they're super cheap to run. You're talking a couple of 100 mile per gallon equivalent. Your warranty covers any repair bills, so you would be saving quite a bit in fuel costs, I would say, if you had one of them. So it would be a big thumbs up for running costs. Negatives, let's have a think. So negatives in terms of what my expectations of a hot hatch version would be. Okay, I'm a little bit let down with the styling. I don't think it's leery enough. This is just so much like the Model 3 Performance. The Model 3 Performance looks very similar to the long range version. Unless you know what you're looking for, there's a few little cues that actually tell you that it's the Performance version. And this is the same. Yeah, it's got the bigger wheels and it's got those orange brake covers, but I think it needs a little bit more in terms of that aggressive hot hatch styling. Maybe a size bigger in wheels as well. To really attract looks-wise as a hot hatch. Civic Type R is my cup of tea for kind of modern hot hatches, as opposed to Golf R, which I think is a little bit understated. So RS3 type thing as well. That's the kind of thing that attracts me. So yeah, looks isn't quite there. Not to say they're bad. They're just not quite what I would expect. I think it's a pretty comfortable driving position. I struggle from back pain, and I've not had any back pain since I've been driving this since this morning, so that is a plus sign for me. Usually half an hour into something I will know if it will suit me comfort wise. The seats are pretty soft, again, which is good. I think it's an all-round great little performance car. And another way to look at this is, given they are at the moment relatively cheap to do an overnight home charge on, you can go out, you can drive pretty fast with your 400 odd brake, and you aren't down into the low teens mile per gallon wise. So that is another way of looking at it. You want to go out and you want to blast about some country roads, maybe you don't miss the sound aspect of petrol cars, then you've actually got a very cheap to run performance car that ticks the boxes for you. And finally, last but not least, I would like to say a big thank you to Peter Vardy MG Edinburgh for giving me the opportunity to drive and review the car. Much appreciated. And I think that is probably a good place to leave the review. So I hope you all found it interesting. Please like, subscribe, and leave some comments and tell me what you thought. And I'll catch you all for the next one.